So I am Erja Heikkinen, Science Policy Director of the Finnish Ministry of Education, Science and Culture. My training is in population genetics and evolutionary biology, and I have been with the ministry for 20 years. Before that, served as a bioinformatics expert in the National Supercomputing Center and worked for current Business Finland as a bioinformatics expert as well. I would like to start from the very beginning of when women got political rights, and it was already 1906. So the first thing was that we realized in Finland that we need everybody for the country to be successful and to contribute to the success of the country. Women got political rights, they got the voting rights, they were able to become members of the parliament, and may I mention that currently 50% of our members of parliament are women. And we also needed all talent for Finland's success. We couldn't lose half of the population not to work for the country and for themselves to have meaningful lives. And participation of women in STEM, that's a tough one. We do have a STEM or STEAM strategy and action plan in place, and we just started the implementation of these. The papers themselves, it's important that they are written, but the implementation phase is much more important, and we finally got there. And what is different in this STEAM strategy in comparison to other STEAM strategies that Finland has had earlier is that we had a social dialogue with all the parties involved. So there were the higher education institutions that are responsible for many of the actions in the action plan, but then there was also industries that will hire all the experts that STEAM fields produce from higher education and from secondary education as well. And there's tasks for everybody, for all fields, for private industries, for us governments to support, for research funders, and then also the big responsibility lies in our education system. And it's not enough if we start from higher education, because many of the segregational features are present already in primary education and secondary education phase, and they are unconscious. So the teachers and for some reason also parents support different genders differently without knowing doing so, and without admitting. If you ask them that do you support boys in this way and girls in that way, they would say no, I treat them equally, because that's a demand by the law, by legislation, that everybody has to be treated as they are, and there's no discrimination, not within the schooling system but not within the working life either. But there are unconscious ways of supporting girls and boys differently during the schooling. And we have done research on this, so we know that this phenomenon exists. And if a girl is talented in natural sciences, it's not noticed really, because for some reason the schooling system seems to think that girls should do humanities and social sciences. And if there's a boy talented in these subjects, then he is directed towards engineering. And of course this is a simplification of what's happening in the schools, but these kind of phenomena do exist. In natural sciences, talented girl usually ends up being a student in medicine, or veterinary medicine, or dentistry. So for some reason this just happens, and we know what the problems are, but changing them is somewhat difficult because it takes time. We have done something. For example, and as for STEAM, the universities that are highly autonomous in Finland have decided adding to the technical faculties programs that involve both engineering, natural sciences and environmental or bio-based disciplines. So environment and bio combined with engineering seems to bring more female students to higher education than we experienced earlier. So during these 20 years that I have been with the ministry, the number of female students in engineering has raised from 20% to 25% due to these new type of school education programs. Some features or parameters in how kids end up choosing what they want to study. We do know that in Finland, even though there's equal opportunity, the constitution guarantees you equal schooling opportunities, it still seems to be dependent on mother's education, what the kids end up studying. And the higher the education level of the mother, the more educated also the kids are, and we can't explain why this is, why not the father. And it also seems to be that if we have good role models in place representing all genders, then it's easier to tempt all kinds of students also into the schooling system. And this is one of what we have tried to work on, trying to find female role models from STEAM fields. But I guess it's a more universal phenomenon that women don't end up being the leaders, the research group leaders, the professors, being a part of the rectorate of universities, etc. There's not enough role models. Yes, we do know that even though the proportion of women in STEAM is on the rise, we still have in ICT only 25% of students female. In engineering it's approaching 30% or so over all disciplines, and in natural sciences it's about on the proportion of women and men is there's twice as many men as females. So as for the employment part, the employment rate of females and males in Finland is about equal, so over 70% of females and males are employed of the age that are still in the working ages. And I wouldn't dare to guess how big proportion of females with diploma from STEAM actually are employed in those positions. The main problem is that even though females would take courses and even get a degree in STEM during their higher education studies, they wouldn't end up working in those fields. Somehow it's more male-oriented, also the employment. But then again, as I as a geneticist and evolutionary biologist, I am employed, very heavily employed, a lot of work to do. But some would question whether my position has anything to do with natural sciences. I would say yes, it does. I get to deal with these issues, for example, with STEAM education. But qualitative employment is a difficult issue, actually. I wouldn't say that there's discrimination. It's more choices of individuals and also tradition. Because our society supports families and individuals with all different kinds of ways. I wouldn't say there's discrimination, that it is a wide phenomenon. Of course, there's individual cases where you can say that this has happened. And but again, I come back to the unconscious ways of doing things. And the lack of role models, and the importance of hidden structures. So there's also research data on networks that support you throughout your life. If you participated, for example, the Scouts when you were young, that's a network that carries you to a certain point in working life without it being really discrimination. But if you know someone from a very early age and later in life your paths cross, maybe that has an effect, and it's against the law to discriminate, but still these unconscious ways of behaving and treating people do come into play, probably. We have world-class research in artificial intelligence in Finland. We don't do it all, but what we do we are very well known of. And one of the features of this research is how to build trustworthy, human-centered, empathetic, ethical AI. And I think we are also pretty well connected in this with like-minded countries. Several other countries, including your beautiful country, have worked on this issue, and that's the only way forward to sort of mitigate the gender bias, if it exists in AI in our country and in other countries, that you between the researcher communities develop the ethics for it. And I wouldn't think personally that the ethics or trustworthiness of AI differs from all other disciplines. It's the same research integrity type of approach that all other fields also have gone through, and there shouldn't be specific AI ethics or AI research integrity in place, but it should all come together. I think we are overestimating the effect of AI in the short term, and will become familiar with it during a longer term. But the way forward between like-minded countries is to collaborate on what we can do, what we shouldn't do, what we won't do, and what will not happen. And, so discussion and dialogue is the way forward, and it should also involve the laymen. So they should have an option to say their views and express their feelings about it, because that's the only way to contribute to inclusiveness. So if there's no inclusion, AI will be an academic trend that everybody will be afraid of if you stop a guy, a girl on the street. So yeah, involving everybody, discussions, and then between like-minded countries we can create a framework for trustworthy AI.